الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على المبعوث رحمة للعالمين نبينا وإمامنا محمد الأمين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين وبعد. But inshallah ta'ala, we're thanking and praising Allah Azza wa Jal for that which He has facilitated for us of this liqa, of this meeting, and we ask Allah ta'ala to make it a blessed liqa. And after doing so, we express our gratitude to our brothers at Amman Circle in Nigeria for their good thoughts regarding their Muslim brother and for setting up this meeting in order that we may benefit one another by way of what has come in the book of Allah 𝗘𝗏𝗏𝗏, by way of what has come within the Sunnah of Mustafa sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in the words of our ulama. This kalima bi'idhnillahi ta'ala is a general word of advice regarding our sisters who desire to hold fast to the methodology of the Salaf as-Salih. And in doing so, we would like to extract some benefit from the words of our beloved Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. As the Messenger of Allah alayhi salatu wasalam, he was given several affairs that none before him was given, and amongst these things were the affair of Jawami al-Kalam wa Fasl al-Khitab. He was given alayhi salatu wasalam the ability to make short and concise statements that were profound in their meanings and their implications. And amongst these statements of his alayhi salatu wasalam is that which comes to us on the authority of Abdullah ibn Amr ibn al-As radiallahu anhuma عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أنه قال المسلم من سلم المسلمون بلسانه ويده والمهاجر من هجر ما نهى الله عنه. He said alayhi salatu wasalam that the Muslim is one whom other Muslims are safe from his tongue and from his hand, and the muhajir, the immigrant, is the one who makes migration away from those things that Allah Ta'ala has made prohibited for him. وزاد الترمذي والنسائي, there has come in another narration with at-Tirmidhi and an-Nasai that he said, وَالْمُؤْمِنُ مَنْ أَمِنَهُ النَّاسِ عَلَى دِمَائِهِمْ وَأَمْوَالِهِمْ, and the believer is the one whom the people can trust with their blood and with their wealth. وزاد البيهقي, likewise in yet another narration with al-Bayhaqi, he mentions وَالْمُجَاهِدُ مَنْ جَاهَدَ نَفْسَهُ فِي طَاعَةِ اللَّهِ, and the warrior, the mujahid, is the one whom struggles against his soul. He makes jihad against his own self in the obedience of Allah Azza wa Jal. So we're going to look at these kalimat that have come inside of this narration and strive with this time that we have with us to extract some fawaid and benefits from it. Al-Hafiz Ibn Haji mentioned concerning the statement al-Muslim. He mentioned alayhi rahmatullah qila al-alaf wal-lam fihi lil-kamal, that this word, it comes being ma'rifah, having the definite article alif and lam upon it, and this is to denote completion of something. It is to denote the completion of something or the epitome of something. For example, we say Zayd or Zaydun al-Rajul, Zaydun al-Rajul, meaning that Zayd is the man, he is kamil fi rujuliyatihi, that he is complete in his manhood, he is complete in manliness. So when we find the likes of this phrase coming, that al-Muslimu man salima muslimun hakada, it is to denote one who is complete in his Islam, one who is complete in his or her Islam. Corrected it. Now, it has come on the authority of Abu Hurairah radiallahu ta'ala anhu that he said, قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم المؤمن القوي خير وحب إلى الله من المؤمن الضعيف وفي كل خير. that the strong believer, al-mu'minu, al-qawi, similarly, it has alif wa lam upon it, that the strong believer, he is strong in his iman. He is strong in his iman. Now, it's better and more beloved to Allah Ta'ala than the weak believer, even though there is some goodness in both of them. And the goodness that can be found in both of them is that iman. However, the strong believer is better and more beloved to Allah. Why? Because his iman is more complete. His iman is more complete. Al-Khattabi, he said, al-Murad, what is intended by way of this is أفضل المسلمين من جامع إلى أداء حقوق الله, that the best of the believers, or the best of the Muslims rather, is the one who brings together the observation of the rights of Allah Azza wa Jal. In addition to that, he or she observes the rights of the Muslims. The statement in which he said, "Men salim al Muslimun min lisani," he whom the Muslims are safe from his or her lisan, their tongue. Now, if we look at the narration of Abu Dharr, radiallahu ta'ala anhu, who said that I said, Ya Rasulullah, أرأيت إن دعوت عن بعض العمل. Said, I said, Rasulullah, what if I am incapable of performing certain good deeds? Meaning, I don't have an abundance of sadaqah. Perhaps I don't have wealth to give like that. Perhaps I don't have the ability to fast abundantly. Perhaps I don't have the ability to do Hajj, Umrah, and the likes of this. So what if I am incapable of performing certain good deeds? He said, alayhi salatu wasalam, تكف شرك عن الناس فإنها صدقة منك على نفسك. He said, if this is the case, that you don't have the ability to do good deeds in abundance, تكف شرك عن الناس. At the very least, withhold your evil from people. Don't go out harming others. Now, he said, withhold your evil from the people, because this will be an act of sadaqah from you that you do for yourself. This is in contrary to what we find from some of the people who unleash their harm upon the people, and they perhaps vilify them with their tongues, they offend them with their speech, they strive to physically harm them. Allah Ta'ala mentioned inside of his book, وَالَّذِينَ يُؤْذُونَ مُؤْمِنِينَ وَالْمُؤْمِنَاتِ بِغَيْرِ مَا اكْتَسَبُوا فَقَدْ احْتَمَلُوا بُهْتَانًا وَإِثْمًا مُبِينًا. Indeed, those who harm the believing men and women without do right, and they have borne upon themselves slander and a tremendous sin. It is incumbent upon us, that we withhold our tongues, and we do not harm our brothers, harm our sisters with our tongues. For the one who allows their tongues to roam freely, as they say, this person is in great danger. The Messenger of Allah said, alayhi salam, ثَكِلَتْكَ أُمُّكَ يَا مُعَاذ. May your mother be bereaved of you, O Mu'adh. هل يكب الناس في النار على وجوههم أو قال على مناخرهم إلا حسائد ألسنتهم. He said, may your mother lose you, O Mu'adh. Will the people be dragged upon their faces in the hellfire? Or he said, dragged upon their noses in the hellfire, except due to the harvest of their tongues. Now, what is intended by the harvest of the tongues of the people is the jaza, the recompense that lies in store for kalam and speech that is improper and impermissible. Now, and the punishment for that is the harvest of the tongue. For indeed, the person is such that in dunya we sow seeds with our actions and our statements. We plant seeds. Now, either those seeds are going to be goodly seeds and thus bring about a goodly reward and a goodly harvest, or they're going to be evil seeds that we plant and thus it will reap an evil harvest. So therefore, the individual who sows seeds of goodness, they're going to reap what? karama. You're going to reap what? Karama. Now, he who sows seeds of evil, they're going to reap an-nadama. They're going to reap regret and remorse on a day whereupon there's no benefit to be derived from our regret and our remorse. So therefore, it is not befitting for the Muslim to allow their tongues to roam freely, but to accustom their tongues to cursing others, reviling others, backbiting the people, hell-carrying, lying, speaking about Allah Azza wa Jal without knowledge. For indeed, all of these bring harm to the Muslim. And the Muslim is the one whom other Muslims are safe from their tongues. So they will not harm the Muslim by way of doing any of these things, by way of speaking without ilm, by way of slandering them, backbiting them, tell-carrying upon them, lying to them or lying upon them, and the likes of this. For this reason, Abdullah bin Mas'ud, he said, he would often swear by Allah Ta'ala, besides whom none has the right to be worshipped, مَا عَلَى الْأَرْضِ شَيْءٌ أَحْوَجْ إِلَى طُولِ السِّجْنِ مِنْ لِسَانٍ. He would say, by he in whose hand is my soul, there is none upon the earth more worthy of long imprisonment, none worthy of being in jail for a long period of time, more so than the tongue. And what into this as well is what we find from some of the parents. Perhaps some of the parents, they get upset with their children, and what do? They curse them, they speak ill to them, and they harm them verbally. Abdullah bin Mas'ud said, قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم سباب المسلم فسوق وقتاله كفر. That to abuse a Muslim, whether it is verbally or physically, it is wickedness. It's wickedness. Whereas fighting them is disbelief. But perhaps a person may say, however, you don't know what so-and-so did to make me deal with him in this way. You don't know what this sister did or what she said to make them deal with me in this manner. We have the guidance of our Prophet ﷺ in this regard. And what has come on the authority of Abu Hurairah radiallahu ta'ala anhu, that he said, أُوتِيَ النَّبِيُّ صلى الله عليه وسلم رجل قد شرب, that a man was brought to the Prophet ﷺ who had drunk alcohol. He had drunk alcohol. And look at how we find the Messenger of Allah ﷺ, what he considered this verbal abuse of a Muslim to be. This man was brought. He had drunk alcohol. Again, for the one who says, you don't know what so-and-so said, you don't know what so-and-so did to make me deal with them or talk to them in this manner that I'm dealing with them or talking to them. This man was brought who had done what? Drunk alcohol. So the Prophet ﷺ, he said, ضربوه. He said, beat him. To beat him, meaning the head, the prescribed punishment for consuming intoxicants. Now, so the narrator says, فَمِنَّا الضَّارِبْ بِيَدِهِ. So amongst us, there were those who were beating him with their hand. وَالضَّارِبْ بِنَعْلِهِ. And amongst us, there were those who beat him with his shoe. وَالضَّارِبْ بِثَوْبِهِ. And amongst us, there were those who were using their garment to hit him with. فَلَمَّا انصَرَفَ قَالَ بَعْضُ الْقَوْمِ أَخْزَاكَ. And so, once this beating was complete, someone amongst the people said, أَخْزَاكَ. May Allah disgrace you. May Allah disgrace you. Now look at this. A dua which the individual made against his brother with the intention of belittlement or revilement. The Prophet ﷺ, he said, لا تقولوا هكذا. He said, don't say this. Don't say this. ولا تعينوا عليه الشيطان. And don't aid shaitan against your brother. Don't aid shaitan against your brother. Now, as we said, some of the people, they say that so-and-so deserves to be spoken to like this because they did such and such, or they did so-and-so to me, or they said such and such on this day. You don't know, you don't understand. Here we have this man who did a kabira min al-kabair, a major sin amongst the major sins. Although he was deserving of the prescribed punishment, he did not deserve to be verbally abused. He did not deserve to be spoken down to because of his sin. The Prophet ﷺ considered this to be aiding shaitan against your brother. Some of the people, min jahlihim, yaftakhir. Some of the people, due to their ignorance, they boast and brag about having the ability to cut people down with their tongues, to verbally abuse others, and to speak to people in a way that is unbefitting. Some people boast and brag about this, Wallahu musta'an, and they believe it to be something honorable or noble, because they say, I have no problem telling somebody about themselves. I have no problem, Yani, I have no problem checking somebody and speaking to them harshly and roughly. Some of the people, out of their ignorance, they boast and brag about this. This is not something which is praiseworthy. It's not something which is honorable and dignified. That you have the ability to belittle the Muslims, to belittle your sister, to belittle your brother, to belittle your husband, to belittle your wife. It is not considered to be courageous and honorable and dignified. Some of the people, the reason why they do this is that they have an erroneous understanding, one, of the religion of Allah Ta'ala. They have horrible manners. They have horrible manners. And due to their erroneous understanding and their horrible manners, they believe that it is dignified and honorable to belittle the people, to cut them down to their face. And they say, well, I'm not going to do it behind your back. I'll rather do it to your face, as if this is better. As if this is better. I'm going to mention something to you. Subtlety that escapes many of the people. Within the hadith of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in which he said, "Atadruna mal ghiba." He said, do you know what backbiting is? The companion said, Allah and His Messenger know best. He said, "Dhikruka akhaka bima yakrah." That you should mention your brother with that which he would dislike. Tell me, do you find anything in this narration to indicate that it has to be done behind a person's back in order for it to be ghiba? He said that you should mention your brother with that which he would dislike. No mention of it being behind his or her back. Now, so some of the ulama, they say that even if it is done right in his face directly to him, if you know that it will be something and some speech that he or she would dislike, it enters into this kabira. Enters into this kabira. Now, again, some of the ulama, they hold this. While, and the majority hold that the asl of ghiba is that it's done fil ghaib, and it's done out of the person's earshot and out of the person's eye shot. Now, but it's interesting to note that some of the ulama hold that it doesn't have to be behind their back. So while you believe that it's more dignified and honorable that you belittle and revile and put down your sister or your brother directly to their face, it is not honorable. It is not dignified. It has come on the authority of Abu Hurairah, radiallahu anhu, that he said, that a man said, Ya Rasulullah, inna fulana تذكر من كثرة صلاتها وصيامها وصدقتها قال أنها تؤذي جيرانها بلسانها. He said, oh Messenger of Allah, so-and-so woman is mentioned for the abundance of her prayers. I mean, she prays optional prayers abundantly, and she fasts abundantly, and she gives sadaqah abundantly. However, she harms her neighbors with her tongue. She verbally harms her neighbors. Allah said, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, hiya fin nar. He's in the hellfire. Woman with all her prayers, all her fasting, all her sadaqah, but she does not withhold her tongue from harming the people, hiya fi nar. He said, alayhi salatu wasalam, she's in the fire. قال يا رسول الله. The man then said, O Messenger of Allah, إن فلانة تذكر قلة صيامها وصدقتها وصلاتها. That, O Messenger of Allah, indeed so-and-so woman is mentioned for the small amount of fasting that she does, and the small amount of sadaqah which she gives, and a small amount of prayers which she makes, and she gives a scanty amount. However, لا تؤذي بلسانها جيرانها, but she does not harm her neighbor with her tongue. قال, he said, هي في الجنة. هي في الجنة. Now, in spite of the small amount of deeds which she does, this woman, she does not harm the people verbally. She does not abuse them and revile them. On the account of that, she is in Jannah. He goes on to mention, وَيَدِهِ, likewise with hand. A man said on one occasion to Umar ibn Abdul Aziz, اجعل كبير المسلمين عندك أبا وصغيرهم ابنا وأوسطهم أخا أولئك تحب أن تسيء إليه. On one occasion, one of the ulama of the past advised the great Khalifa al-Rashid, Umar ibn Abdul Aziz, to اجعل كبير المسلمين عندك أبا. The elder Muslim, treat that elder Muslim as though he's your father. وصغيرهم ابنا. Treat the youth amongst them as though they're your children. وأوسطهم أخا. And those who are your peers and somewhere around the same age as you, treat them as though they're your brother. So which of these classes of people, your father, your child, your brother, أولئك تحب أن تسيء إليه. Which of these classes of people would you like to behave in an evil manner towards? Your father? Would you behave like this with your father? Would you behave like this with your own child, your own biological brother? And if you find it difficult to even do that, then take the advice of Yahya ibn Mu'adh al-Razi, who said, لِيَكُنْ حَظُّ الْمُؤْمِنِ مِنْكَ ثَلَاثَةً. Let the believer get one of three things from you. إِنْ لَمْ تَنْفَعْهُ فَلَا تَضُرَّهُ. If you're not going to benefit him, at least don't harm him. إِنْ لَمْ تُفْرِحْهُ. If you're not going to make him happy and bring a smile to him, at least don't make them sad. And if you're not going to praise him, at least don't criticize him, meaning without do right. He goes on to mention, وَالْمُهَاجِرُ مَنْ هَاجَرَ مَا نَهَى اللَّهُ عَنْهُ. And the immigrant is the one who migrates away from what Allah Ta'ala has made prohibited for him. The author of hijrah in the Arabic language is at-tark, the abandonment of something. And it is of two categories. You have the hijrah that is shar'iyya, and the hijrah that is ma'nawiyya, that you physically abandon something that Allah Ta'ala has prohibited you from, and then you have that figurative type of abandonment of something. Now, in the legislation, hijrah is al-intiqal min balad al-kufri ila balad al-tawheed, to relocate from the land of disbelief towards the land of at-tawheed. And it has its conditions and it has its rulings, and the ulama have spoken about this in their books. As for the hijrah that is intended inside of this narration, وَالْمُهَاجِرُ مَنْ هَجَرَ اللَّهُ وَمَنْ هَجَرَ مَا نَهَى اللَّهُ عَنْهُ, that the immigrant is the one who migrates away from that which Allah Ta'ala has prohibited, then this is something which is obligatory upon every single Muslim. Every single Muslim has the ability to abandon those things that Allah Ta'ala has made haram. Every individual can do this. Now, And the greatest of that which Allah Ta'ala has made haram upon us is shirk in its various types and manifestations. Allah Ta'ala mentions, وَإِذْ قَالَ لُقْمَانُ لِابْنِهِ وَهُوَ يَعِظُهُ يَا بُنَيَّ لَا تُشْرِكْ بِاللَّهِ إِنَّ الشِّرْكَ لَظُلْمٌ عَظِيمٌ. When Luqman said to his son while advising him and admonishing him, "O my dear son, don't make shirk with Allah Ta'ala." But indeed, shirk is a tremendous form of dhulm. Because dhulm, it is what? Putting something in other than its proper place. Now, mathalan, a man has two wives. He takes the night away from one of his wives and gives it to the other wife without due right. He has oppressed the first wife. Why? Because he has taken that night and put it where it didn't belong. Similarly, shirk is dhulm. Why? Because you take worship and put it where it doesn't belong. Worship is the sole right of Allah Ta'ala. But when you render worship to someone other than Allah Ta'ala, you have committed dhulm, you have placed something where it should not go. Now, Allah Ta'ala mentions inside of his book, وَأَمَّا مَنْ خَافَ مَقَامَ رَبِّهِ وَنَهَى النَّفْسَ عَنِ الْهَوَىٰ فَإِنَّ الْجَنَّةَ هِيَ الْمَأْوَىٰ, showing the end result of the one who abandons and leaves off those things that Allah Ta'ala has made prohibited for him. He said, as for he who fears the standing before his Lord, and he withholds himself from those things, from following his desires, evil lust and desires, but indeed, Jannah is going to be his abode. For whenever you abandon something for the sake of Allah Ta'ala, Allah Ta'ala, He will give you in replacement of that affair that which is greater than that which you have left off. As Abu Qatada, he mentioned, the Messenger of Allah said, alayhi wasallam, إِنَّكَ لَن تَدَعْ شَيْئًا لِلَّهِ عَزَّ وَجَلَّ إِلَّا بَدَلَكَ اللَّهُ بِهِ مَا هُوَ خَيْرٌ لَكَ مِنْهُ. That indeed you never abandon anything for the sake of Allah Ta'ala, except that Allah Azza wa Jal shall replace that affair for you with that which is better than it. This is that which we wanted to mention, and we ask Allah Ta'ala to make us from those who actualize what can be found in this narration, and to make us from those who exemplify good manners with Allah Ta'ala first and foremost. Similarly, good manners with the people, with our Muslim brothers, our Muslim sisters, our neighbors, our family, even the kuffar, animals, plant life, and the likes. And likewise, that we exemplify good manners towards ourselves, such that when we err or we fall into a mistake, then we follow up that good deed with a good deed, for indeed it shall wipe it away. This narration is from those examples of the Jawami al-Kalam that was given to the Messenger of Allah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, and it contains within it many fruits and many benefits, which if we apply them within our lives, then we're going to see a change in our relationships. We're going to see a change in our communities. We're going to see a change in our marriage or our family life. We're going to see a change in all of these things. May Allah Ta'ala make us from those who actualize these advices. Allah knows best. هذا وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين وخير دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين.